friends, it is Natalie and I'm here today to bring you my January wrap-up. I have 14 books to share with you, and I have to say the first month of 2020 was an amazing reading month, and I cannot wait to share with you everything that I read, so please stay tuned. Alright, for those of you who have been watching my channel for a while, you know there's no real organization to the way I do this. I'm not going to put them in order from the best to the worst or the worst to the best, or by genre or how many stars. I'm not even going to put them in the order I read them. I'm just going to give them to you and you'll never know what's coming. It might be a 5-star, it might be a 2-star, it might be a mystery thriller, it might be a fantasy. We just keep you guessing on this channel. So let's get started with the first book I want to share with you. I had to go pick up The Silent Patient. This was being talked about so much last year. I believe it won, I could be wrong, it won a Goodreads award, and I kept hearing about it and I just didn't get around to it until I did, and I finally read it, and wow. This book is a mystery thriller, and we have two main characters. The first character is Alicia. She is a happily married famous painter who, for some reason, one day shoots her husband in the face like 5 or 6 times and then goes completely silent. And then our second main character is a guy named Theo, who is a criminal psychologist who is determined that he's going to get her to talk. He wants to find out what her story is. I gave it 4 stars. I really did like it. I did not see the twists and turns. I did not see the big reveal. And I really like the fact that in this mystery thriller, we really kind of dive deep into our deepest feelings and our deepest insecurities. And I'll be honest with you, for me, this book made me sad. And I think a lot of people who read this would feel sad. I don't want to tell you why you would feel sad, but it really does dig deep in just what we as humans need, you know, our basic needs of being loved and feeling secure. And so this was a mystery thriller, like I said, great twists and turns, but also kind of heartbreaking, guys. Very heartbreaking, actually. Now, this next book, I believe I read at the end of December, but do you guys remember I did a fall wrap-up because I'd gone so long without a wrap-up? So there are some books that are kind of like at the tail end of December that I'm including, and that will also include Descendant of the Crane, which was also my first buddy read ever, which was exciting. I buddy read this with Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures, and I had never done a buddy read before, so I was very intimidated, and so I basically let her be completely in charge, and she did a really great job. She was like, we're going to, you know, we'll divide the book up into 4 parts, and then, you know, after each part, we'll come back and we'll have a discussion about it. And I was like, okay, I just wanted her to be in charge of everything because I was so intimidated. It was like I was going on my first date or something. But Berna was so sweet and basically held my hand through the whole thing. I will link her down in the description. She recently did a tag video that had me belly laughing. I won't tell you what she did, but it was so funny. You have to check it out. Like I said, linked in the description. And I'm glad she's the one I buddy read this with, because this book was kind of out of my comfort zone, and it was also kind of out of her comfort zone. That's something we both picked up on immediately, because it's very like high fantasy and it's kind of written in a certain way that neither one of us was kind of used to. We did really enjoy it. Let me tell you what it's about. Our main character is Princess Hasina, who her father is found dead, so she is now, you know, the ruler, but she knows that something went wrong as far as her father's death. She believes he's been murdered, so she, you know, launches this huge investigation, and we have all of these characters that we know it's probably, well, Princess Hasina knows it's probably somebody close. Berna was so funny when we were discussing it. She's like, I'm not ruling anybody out at this point. It was like the nicer the character, the more suspicious we were of them. It was kind of fun that it was a fantasy / murder mystery. You guys know I love some mystery, thriller, murder mystery. That's my thing. So that helped me as well. And as I got into it and more into that style of writing and just that style of genre, I did really enjoy it. And so we both agreed that it was a 4-star read and both said we would recommend it. So I'm recommending it to you. All right, super excited to tell you about the next book. It was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and I loved this book so much, which is really funny because guess what? I almost DNF'd it. Now, I know you're probably going, wait a minute, how did you go from almost DNFing it to giving it 5 stars? Well, it was one of those books that kind of reminded me of the Hunger Games, where at the beginning it was kind of a slow start. Our main character is named Galaxy, which is a crazy name, even though I kind of like it, but they call her Alex, and she gets a free ride to Yale because she can see ghosts, and so she's going to work for the Ninth House, which is also called, I think, the Leth House is Lethe. I don't know exactly how you pronounce that, which basically is a group of people or a house that kind of monitors all the secret societies at Yale, because according to her in this book, all those secret societies like the Skull and Bones that, you know, we've heard about, they all specialize in a particular kind of magic, and they're all different kinds of magic. But of course, when you have young people dealing with magic, you want somebody to be monitoring them to make sure that everything is going okay. So the reason I almost DNF'd it is because for the first like 6 or 7 chapters, yeah, I'd say about this much, when I was reading about this much, it was basically just lots of just kind of, not info dumping, but I wasn't sure what was happening. It was like, okay, she's at Yale. Okay, now we're talking about this character and we're getting some backstory. Now we're at this society watching a ritual. Now we're talking about this character. It was kind of time jumping with the characters. And then it was, you know, we're going from one society doing one thing and then another society was doing one thing and another thing. And I'm going, what's the story? Are we just watching her walk around and learn about these societies? Like, I didn't know what the story was. And then all of a sudden, as soon as we got to chapter 7, the story took off. And I realize now that the reason we had all of that is because we needed to get all that information. We needed to get the background about the characters. We needed to get the background about all these different societies in order for us to be able to understand this complicated story, which turns out to be very murder mystery, which I know turned a lot of people off, but that's what really got me excited because, you know, I love murder mysteries. So the story is her mentor, who is taking around and teaching her, disappears, and about the same time, there's a murder. It seems kind of like an open shut case of a boyfriend, you know, in some kind of, you know, domestic dispute, killing his girlfriend, but she sees it as more, and she kind of suspects that maybe the societies are involved, and now she kind of has to do all this investigating by herself. So I love the fact that we had another multi-genre book where it was kind of urban fantasy / murder mystery. And it's sort of like, just mood and atmosphere wise, reminded me a little bit of The Diviners. And I just finished The Diviners, the 4th book, yesterday. I'm a little sad that that time is over, but I thought this was going to be a standalone, and I found out it's not. In fact, Leigh Bardugo said she could write 5 more books about Alex and this, you know, Yale societies. And I'm like, please do. I will be there to read all of them. I just loved it so much and highly recommend it. I did say it was 5 stars, right? 5 stars. All right, the next book I jumped into was Recursion by Blake Crouch. I was one of the many people who read Dark Matter last year and loved it, put it in my best of 2019 books, and so I wanted to read this one because that was the next book everybody was talking about. This is another book that has 2 main characters. Our first main character is Barry. He is a cop who is investigating this phenomenon called false memory syndrome, where people basically are having false memories. They're going, wait a minute, I'm remembering that I had a child, and they don't have a child. And it's driving people mad and driving some people to suicide. And he's trying to figure out, what is this? Our second main character is Helena, who is a neuroscientist who is trying to figure out how to create a technology that would preserve our memories, specifically for people who are suffering from things like dementia and Alzheimer's. She has a mother who is suffering, I believe it was Alzheimer's in the book, and she wants a way to preserve, you know, those special memories that people might lose. Of course, doing this, she stumbles across something else, and here's the tagline: memory makes reality. And I'm not giving anything away because everybody's talking about it. I'm just going to throw it out there. Dark Matter was about multiple universes. This one is about time travel. Now, I did not like this one as much as Dark Matter. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it, fast-paced. But when I got towards the end, I kind of felt like, is this book going to end? It felt really repetitive to me towards the end. And those of you who have read it might go, okay, I know what she's talking about. At the end, I was just like, can we stop? Like, I started to get a little bit bored at the end. I mean, I still highly recommend it. I just think Dark Matter was, 1 star better. But I gave this one 4 stars, so I still recommend it. But the end, and just was a little bit repetitive to me. All right, the next book is These Witches Don't Burn. I had been seeing this book on BookTube so much, and I love the cover, and whenever anybody would talk about it, I was like, you know what, that just sounds like something fun to read. You know, we read so many books like historical fiction, you know, or books that have, you know, deep topics that we need to discuss, and this was the opposite. This was just fun. And don't get me wrong, I like books that make me think, I like learning about history, but sometimes I just want to read a book that's just light and fun. So in this book, our main character is Hannah. She's an elemental witch who lives in Salem, Massachusetts, and she's dealing with a rough breakup with her girlfriend who, unfortunately, is also an elemental witch who's in her coven. And as she's trying to get over this breakup, dark magic and rituals seem to be happening, or evidence of dark magic rituals seem to be happening all over her community, and it has the coven very worried. Because it seems like it might be a ritual that's being done by a blood witch who are supposed to be very dangerous to elemental witches. And like I said, I wanted to read it because it seemed like a light, fun read, and it is exactly what it was. It was so much fun to read. I enjoyed it so much. I gave it 5 stars because it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I just love the cover so much. Not enough purple books in the world. And the sequel, I believe, is coming out in May. I've already pre-ordered it, and it's got this beautiful turquoise cover that's going to go great with this. So I really highly recommend if you're looking for just a really fun read. All right, we're gonna get to my first disappointment. I did not DNF it, but I only gave it 2 stars. And that was In the Hall with the Knife. I was so excited about this book because it's based on Clue, which is a board game, and it's also a super funny movie from the 80s. And I was just like, oh, this is gonna be so great. And it was not so great. They had a really great concept with this book. They were gonna take, you know, younger characters, give them the same names. Like, you know, if you watch the movie or you've played the game, there's like Professor Plum, there's Miss Scarlet, there's Miss White. They're all kind of color names. And they were going to recreate it with younger people who were stuck at like a boarding school. And I don't know, it just was not super interesting. They had so many characters, which I knew they were going to have a lot of characters, but they did not stick with one name. Like every character seemed to go by like 2 names at least. So as you're reading it, each chapter you would have to stop and be like, okay, who is this? You know, because they would call, like, somebody would be Plum, but they would also call him by his first name, which I can't remember now, but it'd be like Jeff. So it's like sometimes the character would be called Jeff, and sometimes the character would be called Plum, and then sometimes the character would be called, you know, Scarlet, and sometimes the character would be called Jane. And it was like, I am so confused. And honestly, I just wasn't that interested. Like, as I was reading it, I was like, I'm kind of bored. And I kept reading thinking, it's gonna pick up. I just know it's gonna pick up. And it didn't really ever pick up. And then we, you know, got to the end, and it was kind of like with Truly Devious, where we got some answers, but we really didn't get all the answers. And I guess they said it's going to be a trilogy, but I told you, even when you do a trilogy or a series, you have to have the book needs to be able to stand alone. And it wasn't even a cliffhanger. I can't sit there and say, well, it was a cliffhanger. I was like, no, it's like we found out who the murderer was, and it wasn't like a big shock, but we really didn't find out why at all, and it didn't even make sense why this was the person, and it just, I don't know. I might give the next book a try just because I have so much hope that this could be good, but right now I can't say that I would recommend it. I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I was disappointed. Let me know if you read it and you had a different opinion, or if you're like me going, ah, man, shucks. All right, the next book I read was Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is my first Brandon Sanderson book. I did enjoy it, but I don't think I enjoyed it nearly as much as a lot of other people did. It was maybe a 3.5, 4-star read for me. Let me tell you a little bit about it, and then I'll explain why it was not a 5-star for me like it was for so many others. In this book, we're in a time where humans have left Earth. I'm not sure why, and for a while, I guess we were on spaceships out and about in space, and somehow we either crash landed or for whatever reason have ended up on this other planet, and there's these Krell, which are these aliens that are always attacking us. So humans have basically been driven underground, and then we are training pilots who go up and basically fight the Krell from coming down and taking us over, basically. Our main character is Spensa, who desperately wants to be a pilot because her father was a pilot, but her father is known as a traitor and a coward because in some big, huge battle, he left his crew and did some crazy things that made him look like a traitor and a coward. And he basically turned on his own crew, and, you know, nobody knows why. So this makes it really hard for her to get into flight school. And even when she does get into flight school, I mean, she has to go through so much harassment and people don't want her there. Now, you spend a lot of time in this book in a spaceship learning how to be a pilot. And I can see for some people that would be so much fun. And at times it was fun. And then sometimes I was like, okay, can we stop flying around and have like talk about something else or do something else? I got a little bit tired of being in the spaceship kind of flying around. I mean, I understand she was in flight school, but I mean, this was a long book and there was a lot of time where we were learning how to fly. My other problem with this book is I knew there was a bigger story. Like, nobody had ever seen a Krell. Nobody knew why the Krell were attacking us. And I'm like, there's something bigger going on here. I know there's something bigger going on here. I know we're going to find out what this bigger thing is, but it was literally like the last 5 pages of this huge book before we started really finding out what was really happening. And I was very happy with the reveal. I thought, okay, that's cool. I like that that's what's really going on, but I don't like that I had to read that much to find out. So I do believe I'm going to go on with a sequel now that we have, you know, the answers out there and we're going to, you know, be looking at this differently. I kept turning the page going, any minute now, I'm going to get a little bit more of the story. And it was like, no, we're still flying. And, you know, just constant, we're flying. When are we going to get some answers? No, we're going to fly some more? Okay, let's fly some more. But we're going to get some answers after that? No, we're still flying. All right. And like I said, I'm getting to like there's this much left of the book. And I'm like, maybe they're not going to tell us what's going on. Or maybe I'm over projecting and there is nothing else going on. No, there was something else going on. It's just they waited at the very last minute because they guess they wanted the readers to learn how to fly. So, like I said, we'll definitely check out the next book because now I know what's really going on and it's pretty cool. I just didn't like waiting that long. So that was why it was a 4-star, not a 5-star for me. All right, the next book I read was 13 minutes, but if you look closely, it says, I was dead for 13 minutes and now I want to know why. And if you're wondering why I picked up this book, the author is Sarah Pinborough, who wrote Behind Her Eyes, which is the craziest mystery thriller I've ever read as far as what ended up being the big reveal at the end and the big twist and something I never saw coming. It's one of those books that twisted and then it would twist again and then you would think, okay, we're done twisting. And then at the last few pages, I mean, they gave you an extra twist where you were just like haunted. Like for days, I was like, that was crazy. So I was like, I like this author. I like the way her brain works. Let me see what else she's got out there. So I gave this book 4 stars. It was not as good as Behind Her Eyes, but it was still good. Now in this book, we have 2 main characters. I feel like almost every book I read has 2 main characters. But anyway, there's 2 main characters. Our first main character is Natasha. Natasha is the most popular girl at her school. And she is dead for 13 minutes. She gets pulled out of a very cold lake and she doesn't know what happened, and she doesn't want to really talk to her immediate circle of other popular girls because she suspects they might be involved. So she turns to our second main character, Becca, who used to be her best friend, but, you know, with high school politics and the social, all that stuff that happens in high school, you know, you see a lot of friendships end because one person becomes really, really popular and one kind of doesn't, and, you know, in high school. But anyway, so she turns to her old friend, Becca, to help her try to figure out what's going on. And I really did think she did a great job. Like I said, I love her style. I love the way her brain thinks. I mean, she's not going to give you one twist. She's going to twist you several times. I did highly enjoy this. The twists weren't as shocking as Behind Her Eyes. Now, part of that might be because I've read Behind Her Eyes and I now know what she's capable of as an author, but I still enjoyed it. This was a little bit more YA, but still, it was Sarah Pinborough's style of twisty writing, and I think I have at least one more book or 2 more books that I got from book outlets, so definitely will continue reading this author. She is great at those plot twists. All right, the next book I read, well, not the next book I read, this actually I think was one of the first books I read, was I Know You Remember by Jennifer Donaldson. I know sometimes I tell you the author and sometimes I just expect you to read it for yourself, you know, no consistency here. But anyway, this is another mystery thriller. Our main character is Ruthie, who spent most of her life in Seattle, but when her parents separate and her mother moves, I believe, to like the Seattle or Washington area, she decides to move to be closer with her mom. And then later on, when her mom dies, she decides she wants to move back to Alaska, and she's so excited about reconnecting with the girl that she grew up with that was her lifelong best friend. Her best friend was named Zara, like Sarah, but with a Z. And before she can even see the girl, she's there for like 2 or 3 days and the girl has disappeared. And so Ruthie tries to get to know her friend's friends, and she can tell by the stories they're telling that her friend has changed and she's really, really different. Even though they did keep in touch, you know, through Facebook and whatnot, and an occasional phone call here and there. She knows, you know, there's a lot of changes, and she's just trying to figure out what happened and where is her friend and why did she disappear. And I gave this one 4 stars. I definitely did not see the reveal coming, so that was good. And yeah, I enjoyed it. If you like mystery thrillers, I recommend it. All right, the next book I want to tell you about is One of Us is Next. This is a sequel to One of Us is Lying, which I told you was a mystery thriller that was kind of a mystery thriller if The Breakfast Club, the movie The Breakfast Club, had been a mystery thriller where a bunch of kids that all fit some sort of high school stereotype are sent to detention and one of them does not make it out alive. Now that book I gave 5 stars, and this one I gave 4 stars. This one I also enjoyed quite a bit. This one has some of the characters from the first book. I don't want to tell you which characters in case, you know, because I don't want to, once again, when I'm talking about a sequel, it's kind of hard not to, you don't want to reveal anything from the first book. But we do have some of the same characters from the first book. But in this book, we have somebody who is playing a deadly game of truth or dare. They basically have a way to kind of text everybody in the community and give them the opportunity to do a truth or dare, and you definitely want to take the dare, because if you don't take the dare, then they're going to reveal a truth that's like a deep, deep, dark secret that's going to probably damage, you know, relationships in your life, and, you know, but the dares can be deadly as well. So we have a lot of the same characters, and we also have a lot of new characters, and then we're just trying to figure out who is doing this and why are they doing this and how are they connected to what happened in the first book. All right, next, this book was called It Started With Her, It Ends With You. This is about a town where a very liked and popular loved girl is found dead in a ditch, and then the book is told from 6 different perspectives, which I found very interesting. This one was also a 4-star read for me. I read a lot of 4-star mystery thrillers this month. I really enjoyed the characters in this book. You really get to know the characters pretty deeply. I was a little kind of disappointed with what the reveal ended up being. Some of you may not at all be disappointed. Somebody did this on their best of 2019 and put this as the top book. I just was a little bit disappointed with what the reveal was. I kind of sort of recommend it. Does that make sense? All right, I have 3 more books that I want to talk about. The next 2 are both Reese Witherspoon book club picks. The first one is The Giver of Stars by Jojo, is it Mayes? I don't have the book in front of me because I gave it to my mom because I really wanted her to read it. It is definitely, that and Ninth House have been the 2 best books I have read so far in 2020. Both of them excellent in completely different ways. I'm not going to tell you too much about it except that I gave it 5 stars, and ironically it's called The Giver of Stars because I would love to give it more stars than 5. It was just truly incredible. I'm really, really hoping Reese Witherspoon turns it into a movie. And then the December book was Conviction, which was a murder mystery. I'm not going to really tell you anything about those 2 books because I discussed them in a lot of depth in my January Reese Witherspoon Book Club review, which I'm hoping is showing up in the cards right now because I decided you've had your channel for a year. You need to learn how to put up cards. It's time. It's like, you know, something you're supposed to learn like the first month that you have a YouTube channel, and I've just been like, I don't know, I'm intimidated, and finally I said, this is ridiculous. Watch the video, learn how to do it. So hopefully a card for the January Reese Witherspoon Book Club is showing up. If for some reason it's not, and I could not figure it out, it will be down in the description, but definitely check it out because we talked about some great books in that video. All right, now this book I actually read in February. This book did not even come out until February, but I had to talk about it, and I read it in like 2 days. And that was Open Book by Jessica Simpson. And yes, this was a nonfiction and is not usually in the realm of what I read, but I had to read this book. For those of you who are too young to remember, you might not know a whole lot about who Jessica Simpson is, but her story is kind of cray-cray. All right, so I'm going to take you back, for those of you who are too young, back to the late 90s, where you were either a baby or a toddler, or you were like not even born yet. Okay, so for most of the 90s, it was really about grunge music, music coming out of Seattle. And then at the end of the 90s, I believe it was in 1998, all of a sudden there was this big blonde pop star that hit the scene and went to #1. It was not her. It was Britney Spears, and she became a huge sensation. And I feel like 5 minutes after she came out, another big star with blonde hair came out with a huge hit, still not her, named Christina Aguilera. And all of a sudden it was like those two were just constantly kind of almost competing. And I wasn't really into them, but my younger sister and her friends were. It was like, do you like Christina better, or do you like Britney better? Like, who do you like best? And they really were kind of going neck and neck. Then what happened is, because we had these two huge blonde pop stars, who were singing and dancing with their bellies showing. You had to have your belly showing. It seemed like every single record label was like, we have got to find ourselves a blonde teen girl who can sing and dance and has a great stomach so that we can show it during the videos. I mean, it was crazy. It was like all of a sudden there were 100 blonde girls who could sing and dance. That's where Jessica Simpson came in. She was not one of the top 2 stars that came in and rode up the charts. She was one of the ones that came in kind of afterwards, and she had a following. I mean, she did concerts, she's open for people, but she did not have that big stardom the way Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera did. And I remember at the time when she came out, for me, I was just like, oh gosh, not another one. Another one? Seriously? Like, stop with the blonde teen pop stars. Somebody else, just an interesting fact, is if you watch the show This Is Us, which you should because it's an incredible show, the woman who plays the mother, Mandy Moore, she was actually part of that group too of young pop stars that they were kind of throwing at us after the Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears sensation. But she quickly moved into acting because it became such a saturated market. And obviously she's doing very well as an actress on the show This Is Us. So you're probably going, okay, and this chick, okay, so this chick was one of those girls who got thrown at us at a point where we were like, all right, stop already. Oh my gosh, I can't look at another one. So I didn't really give her much attention. I don't think she got a whole lot of attention until, you have to also remember, we're talking about the turn of the century, when all of a sudden reality TV started to be a thing. And it started with Ozzy Osbourne. And of course, we all wanted to watch that because Ozzy Osbourne was known as being on stage and, biting off, what was it? Was it rabbits? Not rabbits. What did he bite off? Rat heads or bird heads or, I don't know. He bit heads off of animals or something. Just crazy stuff. So the idea that he was going to be like domestic and have a family and we're going to have cameras watching him being a dad. I mean, it was like must-watch TV. And it was a really successful show. And there wasn't 100 reality shows on back then. Like Ozzy Osbourne, I think, was like the only one. I think maybe some of the shows like Survivor might have been starting. I can't remember. But right after that, she had gotten married. She had married a guy from a boy band because boy bands were also everywhere. We had NSYNC and Backstreet Boys come out as the big two. And then all of a sudden it felt like, oh, it's another boy band. Oh, and it's another boy band. I mean, it was just an oversaturation of female blonde pop stars and then boy bands when you're talking about the late 90s and early 2000s. But she got married to Nick Lachey, who was part of 98 Degrees, and they did a reality show called The Newlyweds, and it was a major hit. And of course, we all wanted to watch, because like I said, reality TV was a whole new thing. The idea that we could watch celebrities in their everyday life was, fascinating. We was like, oh, what are they going to do? And it was such a hit, and it was like, oh my gosh, like they eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner just like the rest of us. This is crazy. Oh my gosh, they're a married couple, and they act like a married couple. But they seem like such the perfect couple on the show, and poor Jessica Simpson, I really kind of felt bad because she was very naive. She was very, very young. I think she was only 22 when she got married and thrown on the show. Because she was very naive, she would say things that weren't stupid. They were just things somebody who is naive would say. But because that made the show so funny, it kind of pushed her, the producers of the show really kind of pushed her to act more stupid, to act dumb, to kind of make the show, funny. And that was kind of like what made the show a hit was, oh, what is she going to say? Blah, blah, blah. But then it was like we had 4 seasons of the Newlyweds, and then they seemed like the perfect couple. We're watching them on screen, living their lives. They seemed like the perfect couple, and then bam, they're getting divorced. And everybody was like, how are they getting divorced? They're the perfect couple. We watch them all the time. We see them in their daily lives. They're happy. This makes no sense. And so Newlyweds went off the air. She went off and did her own thing. She started like a fashion empire. She started dating different people. He went off and married somebody else. He wrote a really sad album about how she broke his heart. And we never really found out what in the world happened, because everybody was just stunned that they were divorced, because we were all completely believing that they were this happy couple. And she's had so many just really sad things happen. I mean, she's successful and she has this billion-dollar fashion empire. But then she had later on, when she was singing, she came out and she was criticized for being overweight because she was like 115 pounds. And I really enjoyed this book because she talks about how, you know, she was a singer and she's trying to make a career, and how they basically sat her down and wanted to turn her into the next Britney Spears. And she was like, I was 115 pounds and they're telling me I need to lose weight, which is crazy. And they wanted her super skinny, which let her down, you know, taking diet pills, and just really what was going on behind the scenes. And it was just tea being spilt everywhere. Things a lot of us who were around during that time, you know, have always wondered what happened with all of that. We have finally got the answers. She also talks about the fact she, you know, got addicted to alcohol. She had some child abuse, you know, so she really, and was very honest. And one thing I have to say about Jessica Simpson is she really is one of those people. She is who she is. And I actually had watched an episode of Ellen, like, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, where she was acting so weird that I started to think maybe she really is that stupid, because she was just answering it. Like, it was so bad that when I went to visit my sister, we were watching YouTube videos. I said, can I show you a video of Jessica Simpson? Because I always kind of felt like, oh, she's naive, but you know, she's not stupid. But watch this interview. She really sounds dumb. Like when she's answering Ellen's questions, she just doesn't seem to have an answer. It was just odd. It was just really odd. And I really remember thinking at the time, okay, maybe she is that stupid. And I gave her too much credit. I did not realize that while she was on that show, she had drank a lot of alcohol and was drunk and was just trying to keep up with the questions. So now I have a lot more respect for her, knowing, okay, so you're not dumb, you had a drinking problem. And yeah, it was just for people who were around. If you were around during that time and you watched the Newlyweds and you were one of those people who always was wondering, what is going on? What in the heck was this woman's story? She leaves nothing out. She puts it all out there. And it was just very interesting. And it was very interesting just to hear how hard it is in the pop music industry. I mean, I would not want, if I had a daughter, I would not want her to go into the pop music industry, at least. Well, I think it's gotten better now. I would not want it for her to be in here where if she had been 110 pounds, be like, oh, you're fat. So yeah, definitely worth a read if you were part of that, people who were watching the Newlyweds. I will be doing the end of the year tag. I will be doing my 1,000 subscriber giveaway, which is going to have multiple winners, so you're definitely going to want to check that out. And we're going to be doing the February Reese Witherspoon review a little bit earlier this month, because we're going to be making some changes that I'm really excited about that I'll talk about more when we get there. And yeah, that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.